Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich, and welcome to the Herefordshire Means Business Networking Online. Good to see some new faces and some familiar ones. As I said before, apologies for the issues. I think we are now up and running. There may be a few people who are going to join us afterwards. I am recording the meeting. What we tend to do is put a recording of it onto our YouTube channel for those who've missed it, or if you want to share it with colleagues, if there's things you want to go back to. If you have any questions, queries, etc., that you want to ask or share, then please put a Q or put a question in the chat box. We will be looking at that and we'll come on to it as and when. This time we're doing a funding special, so I'll introduce the guests in a moment or two, but I'll just introduce you to the HMBiz team. With me today I've got Kerry, give us a wave Kerry, Richard, Kim and myself, and we've been running these events throughout lockdown, and we're going to be continuing to run them just as a bit of additional support, helping you to connect and get some support from the business community. And I'm really pleased that we have some guests with us today, and our first guest is Lyndsay Francis, who's with us today from the Herefordshire Council and the Marches Growth Hub. She's an Economic Development Officer. Lyndsay, what's one of those?
Supporting the economy of Herefordshire and trying to help create and generate businesses and the local business community in Herefordshire. Okay,
brilliant. So over to you. Do you want me to share your slides?
Yes, please.
Make a start. Okay, right. Now we'll try technology again. Let me see if I can do this. I should be able to share.
Fabulous.
Like that. So hopefully now everyone can see your slides.
Can we go to the first one?
And I'm at the end of them, am I?
I think so.
That was quick.
There we go. All done. Okay, so good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, as Rich said, I'm Lyndsay Francis. I work for Herefordshire Council in the Economic Development team, and I am the Growth Hub lead for Herefordshire. So to explain that a little bit more, the Growth Hub sits under the Marches Growth Hub brand, which was launched in 2015, and it provides a free business support service. And it provides a central point of contact to all Herefordshire businesses. We have a business-friendly base in Rotherwas, Hereford, and although things are a little different for all of us at the moment, we have used this base over the years to deliver a range of business-relevant workshops and seminars, and we also use the facilities there to meet with businesses on a one-to-one basis. Generally, this is to discuss their individual needs. How we can help, if you could go to slide 2, please, Rich. Next one. Fab. How we can help is to help a business to identify and access various funding and finance options. We provide relevant advice and signposting to other business support providers who can also deliver specific support to businesses. We also help businesses who are looking to potentially upskill employees, take on staff perhaps for the first time, or considering taking on an apprentice. We can help in this area. We regularly update and circulate a calendar of business events, although these do look very different at the moment. And this does include training and networking opportunities, as well as delivering and facilitating topical events at the Growth Hub. I think moving forward, these are likely to be more virtual events, and we'll be working up the calendar for that over the next few months. So the Marches Growth Hub works with businesses to diagnose their support, as I said, and provides advice on the suitable options, and this can be from a plethora of available schemes. So we almost do a matching service with what the business requires and what is available to help them. So if you could move to slide 3, please, Rich. So there are still a number of grants available. These grant schemes were available prior to Brexit and COVID, and will continue for the certainly over the next few years anyway. So the ones I'm going to talk about today specifically is the Business Growth Programme, the Marches Build and Investment Grant, the Business Energy Efficiency Programme, and the Marches Renewable Energy Project. But as I say, generally, it would be a conversation with somebody at the Growth Hub to determine which one would be the most suitable one for you because of the various eligibility criteria that sits around them. Okay, slide 4. So the Business Growth Programme is made up of 2 parts. Essentially, you've got the startup element and an existing business grant element. And the startup element can deliver grants between £2,500 to £10,000 to pre-starts and businesses that have been trading for less than 6 months. The grants are 50%. You generally get grants of between 30 and 50% when you're looking at ERDF funding. This grant can help towards the purchase of capital equipment, any relocation and expansion costs, any costs associated with product development, purchase of consumables, perhaps legal fees, connectivity and professional fees. The existing business grant is slightly higher because obviously we've got that element of established business, and that can offer between £10,000 and £1 million for businesses who operate on a business-to-business basis and has been trading for longer than 6 months, as we say, 50% grant. And this again, same sort of areas can help with capital equipment, relocation and expansion costs. Market development is an additional one in this one. And again, your third-party professional fees are there. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. We've also got the Marches Build and Investment Grant. This has been running for quite a number of years. In its previous guise, it was called the Marches Redundant Building Grant. So it's sort of developed into a build and investment grant because under this scheme we can actually support new builds, but it helps with new build, reconfiguration and extension of commercial buildings in Herefordshire and Shropshire. It says there what the minimum and maximum costs are, 50% again. All eligible businesses must be an SME, own or a tenant with a 6-year lease, creating jobs, and they say a minimum FTE of 36 hours, and trading as a business to business, which has to be at least 70%. These are all ERDF, so European Regional Development Funding criteria. This isn't our criteria, this is what we have to work with. And it just says a little bit more about the process of applying, how you have to put forward an application form, a business plan, providing evidence and some quotes so that you can sort of show a bit of a rationale behind the plan that you're looking to put into place. Okay, next slide. On the side of the Marches Build and Investment Grant is the Small Equipment Grant. This only launched in January, so we haven't had too much traction with this one for quite obvious reasons. And again, it's a grant for SMEs, but it enables them to purchase small equipment. It has to be capital equipment, not revenue costs. The maximum grant is 10k, the minimum is 1k. It kind of sits alongside the Business Growth Programme. But it would be down to the conversation, as I say, with the Growth Hub and the programme deliverers to actually decide which one's the best one for the business going forward, depending on how we could potentially package up a project to maximum funding for the business. If you could go to the next slide, please. So just to reference the Business Energy Efficiency Programme, that is delivered across Herefordshire. The grant aims at helping small and medium-sized enterprises to reduce their greenhouse gases, essentially. It can provide free energy assessments. This could lead to grant funding of between 1 and 20,000. And it also helps businesses to tackle waste and water usage. So if there was any businesses interested in that, if they speak to me at the Growth Hub, then I can help put you in touch with one of the programme managers for that. And the last one I'm going to talk about is the Marches Renewable Energy Scheme. This scheme itself supports renewable energy projects. Applicants must plan to occupy the premises for more than 5 years, and it supports new installations and those that service existing properties. So it could either be attached to or something that sits alongside a property and helps to sort of benefit the building. There are, I don't know all of these full KWPs, but my understanding is that they've got a target of kilowatt peak savings to be made from the installation, and this can include various technologies from wind, solar, air and ground source heat pumps and biomass, those sort of technologies. It can help to be implemented at the business. There are other schemes available. There's all sorts of different routes to support, either funded support, whether that be workshops, mentoring, and many other funded projects, including business loans. Those are covered off by other people, and I know Andy's going to talk a little bit about that today. But yeah, when you're looking as a business to what opportunities you've got to grow and how perhaps funding or support through the Growth Hub can help, then by all means come and talk to me. As I say, the support is available to all local businesses of Herefordshire, any stage, any size, any sector. And I would urge any business wanting to find out more and about how the Growth Hub can help your business to get in touch. Rich will have my details. Thank you. That's me.
You're on mute, Rich.
I always make that faux pas. Anyway, thank you, Lyndsay, for that. And we'll put all those contact details in the email that we send out after the event to all those who've attended, with all your contact details on what to do next if anyone's interested in that. We'll move straight on, because I know time is at an essence, to our next speaker, who is Andy Moss. And now we'll try the technology again now to see if I can change Andy to be the host. So.
Is that for me to share my screen? Have you got my slides, or am I sharing?
If you want to, you can share them. If I change you to host, you should now be able to share your screen. Have you got a message come through?
Ooh. Is that, have you got that?
Yeah, that's coming on my screen.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, everybody, for having me. Andy Moss from the Midlands Engine Investment Fund. I actually work for the FSE Group, that is one of the fund managers deploying the debt finance part of the Midlands Engine Investment Fund. So, so the raison d'etre of this fund, the Midlands Engine Investment Fund, which is made up of 4 funds here, as you can see on the screen. Have you got the whole screen on there, or have you, can you see the left-hand side as well? Is it just one slide on there?
All of them.
You can see all of them down the left-hand side, can you?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
If you click play, that should sort it out.
How's that? That's better?
That's better.
Okay, thank you. My Zoom PowerPoint skills are not quite where they should be. So this fund has been designed to help SMEs in the Midlands Engine territory, which is made up of 10 LEPs, including your LEP. So it goes, the geography I'm covering with my team is up to Grimsby in the northeast, across to Stoke, down through the Marches to Hereford, and across to places like Milton Keynes. So it's a very wide and broad definition of the Midlands under MEIF. And similarly to Lyndsay's fund, we are ERDF, EIB and LEP funded. So, you know, putting it bluntly, this is taxpayer money which we are deploying to try and help SMEs within this geography. And so it's made up of 4 funds, as you can see, and 2 debt, 2 equity, and we'll kind of work through them from left to right. And then I'll tell you a bit more about the debt funds in more detail. Proof of concept, pretty much as it says on the tin. A fund manager called Mercia in South Birmingham works and leads on that fund. They work with quite a lot of businesses that are technology based, university sort of originated, businesses that have got high growth potential for the technology that they are developing, or the business that they're developing. Often it's IP based businesses, but they've been around 20 years and do a great job. The small business loans, as you can see, read from the screen, businesses that are SMEs that only need a smaller amount of funding for growth. And this is about growth and jobs, given the nature of the funding. And then we come in under the debt finance banner for SMEs that want to grow for funding between 100 and 1.5 million. And I'll tell you in more detail about that fund in a moment. But it is just to be clear, it is about growth and jobs. And it's interesting, isn't it, the environment that we've been operating in over the past few months, one of survival, if you like, for a lot of businesses, supported by CBILS and supported by bounce back loans. It's been a very challenging time to be talking about growth, but there are lots of businesses talking about pivoting for growth, if you like. And then on the right-hand side, there's the equity fund, and that's handled by a fund manager in Birmingham called Midven, and they again have been around 18, 20 years and have built up an excellent portfolio of businesses. And you might say, well, why would a business choose debt versus equity? And mainly, if a business really wants to leverage up its performance, or it's not quite generating the revenues and the profits to fund the costs of debt amortization, then that would be where you want to employ equity. But of course, you dilute your ownership when you take an equity investment. You don't get that repayment commitment, but you dilute your equity. So with a lot of businesses, it works really well, but the circumstances have to be right for you as an SME. And I would say that with all the liquidity that's been around in the past 10 years, a lot of these equity funds have been turning their attention to SMEs. And so they generally would start at an equity check of 250K and up to 2 million. But generally they won't write a check for 2 million at the outset. Generally they look to feed that equity funding in. So MEIF fund then, 2 debt, 2 equity to fund SMEs, growth and jobs. And if we think about debt now, these are the main purposes on this wheel that we're funding. So new equipment, marketing, cost premises moves, hiring new staff, product development, new markets, exporting. They are the main reasons we would fund growth, but not exhaustive. What isn't eligible on this right-hand side, so existing expenditure, refinancing, we don't sort of do MBOs, MBIs, we don't do cash outs as some of the equity funds would. We don't fund working capital, and working capital is really important, isn't it? Particularly with these deferred liabilities, with VAT, with things like getting back into working capital cycles, where debts have probably been collected, and you've got to put funds into starting up a working capital cycle again as we kind of emerge from lockdown into a trading cycle. And it's not designed to fund businesses that are in a difficult position. So again, it comes back to simple messages of growth and jobs, and it's future focused. So let's tell you a little bit more about our debt fund. And our debt fund is 100K to 1.5 million, as I've said, and it's to fund businesses that fall into a gap which are between bank debt and equity. So we'd say to any business, if you can get your funding from your bank, go and do that, whether that's under CBILS, bounce back loans or normal terms, go and do that, because we are pricing to a risk that isn't bank debt. So that's a real key consideration for this type of funding. It's that gap between bank debt and equity. So that's reflected in our interest rate and our arrangement fee. So our interest rate for this type of funding is between 10 and 15% over base, and it's lent over 3 to 5 years. Now, the two main reasons that we get involved is where businesses aren't able to secure their funding from their bank because they can't demonstrate profitable trading financial accounts to satisfy banks, let's say 2 times EBITDA way of looking at debt servicing. So it's previous trading, profitable trading evidence that businesses can't demonstrate. And the second reason, main reason, is that you can't get there on security. So most banks will want to take a debenture with a limited company. They'll want potentially a personal guarantee, but they also might want some supporting security as well, like a second charge on a house or something like that. So, and we look for a debenture, but more often than not, we'll be ranked second behind the senior lender, the bank or the invoice finance provider. And whilst we take a partial PG, personal guarantee, we don't look for supporting security. So in terms of not being able to secure bank funding for those two reasons, that's where we come into it. And there are quite a lot of businesses in those situations, and typically businesses that are under 5 years old, and typically businesses sub 5 million turnover, albeit this funding is designed for SMEs described by Europe as in EU, as in sub 50 million euros and sub 250 employees. So you can read the bullets here, but these are key reasons why you want to choose debt finance. You're funding a product or service that can demonstrate strong market traction. Revenues typically in excess of required debt quantum, credible path to cash break even, ability to service loan interest costs, concerns about further equity dilution, step change finance to achieve the next level of growth. So if you don't want to dilute your equity, if you've got a growth story, despite what's happened in the past, and you can demonstrate that through cash flow, P&L, balance sheet forecasts that say, this is my growth story and this is my ability to repay if I can get this injection of debt, then the Midlands Engine Investment Fund, whether it's the small fund or the fund that I lead, might well be for you. We would be very happy to talk with you about it. So this is key, I think, to a lot of SMEs trying to get their head around and get geared up to provide a lot of the information that we're looking for. But we're looking for a management team that we would look to assess and form an opinion of. A management team that gives confidence, really understanding of what your product and service does and how it's going to drive growth, how it's going to generate revenue. What is the clear USP which sets you apart against your competition? And then, because we look at future cash flow and profits as opposed to looking at historic records like banks do, we will kick the tires, in inverted commas, on the profit and loss balance sheet and cash flow forecast looking forward. And so what I'd say to you, if anybody's interested in this type of funding because you've got a compelling growth story, you need to put some time or get some help with putting together these documents, looking at a 3-year window, and then accompanied with a business plan as well, and being really clear about where you're going to employ the funds and how it's going to kind of generate additional turnover and profits, and how it's going to generate jobs as well. So final slide, and let's just kind of give you some manager expectations around timescales. So talk to us around what your idea is about what funding you need. We can quickly make a review of that application. We can give you some guidance as to what we think we need you to do. We can get into that assessment phase and then do our due diligence, and we get to stage 4, a credit committee. And so because it is, because of the source of the funds, it is wrapped around a diligence process, which, you know, I used to work for Lloyd's, and for these types of funding, you know, I'd be able to sign them off myself. But because it is taxpayer money, because it is government money, well, it's taxpayer money, it does have, every credit submission does go to a credit committee. And then we get into kind of execution phase, as in putting documentation in place, putting the right legals in place, making sure that conditionality has been satisfied before we draw down the funds. The final thing I just wanted to say that I haven't said so far is that both the small fund and the fund that I look after, so the 25 to 150 and the 100 to 1.5 million, are CBILS accredited funds. And what generally what we're trying to employ those to do is to help businesses transition to growth, not really use CBILS, as a standalone, but as a transition to growth. But both funds are CBILS accredited. So that's my final slide, and hopefully that's been helpful in explaining what Midlands Engine Investment Fund is about in supporting SMEs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. If I can just reclaim the host back. And if you want to just, there we go. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Lyndsay and Andy, for very informative slides there. So just moving on then to questions. Does anyone have any questions for our guests today? I do know that Paul, I think, is he
Peter?
still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, I submitted a question.
Ah, okay. Well, if we do Paul first, because I do know I've got him on top of my list, but
Okay.
if that's okay, Peter, we'll do Paul and then Peter.
Yeah, it's a question mostly for Lyndsay, and it's about support for companies who have fallen through the cracks. I've been in business for a long time, but I had a perfectly innocent accounting change in 2019 from a limited company to a sole trader. Unfortunately, that means that I had I didn't meet the requirements that the government set out for a particular set of accounts having been submitted to HMRC on a particular date. And so while I have been in business successfully for a decade, I'm getting no government help. And the thing is, my competitors are. So I've been quite personally out of pocket because of all this, while my competitors are getting up to 80% of their previous monthly income. And it kind of feels like the government's taking sides, frankly, and who to support and who not to, and who's going to survive. So what support is there for me?
So you're talking specifically about COVID-related finance package that's been put in place to support businesses. So that's not my area. I am really sorry. All I'm going to say is the only thing you can do is email in to Herefordshire Council. That's all I can say with regard to contact. I've got an email address that you can email to and put your case forward. I understand that they're working on a hardship fund. Those are for people like yourself who would potentially fall through all the cracks of all the different support mechanisms they've put in place. As we know, there are many. The only thing you can really do is email business@herefordshire.gov.uk, put forward your case. they have until the end of August to spend the money. So the sooner you do that, the better. As soon as they release the hardship fund, then you will be in a good position then to be able to put your case forward.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. That's very useful.
Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Peter then.
Oh, right. I'll just look up my question. Shall I just read it out?
Yep.
Oh, computer says no. That's a good start. The penalties. I'm not messing things up by being the only vertical format, am I?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I'm on a Mac, and it seems to cause all sorts of fun when it's trying to do things. But I'll try and remember my question. My business has benefited from funding many times. Well, several times in the past. I'm a creative person primarily. I used to own an advertising agency as a creative director. When I came to back to this country, I started some creative businesses. I sought funding when I decided to save the planet, and that attracted quite a lot of interest and support. But one thing I did find, and these are probably names that either so long ago everyone's forgotten about them, or you guys will all nod sagely: Mustard, Business Link, guys like that, and then some other ones. I'm not terribly familiar with such things, and some of the jargon that was coming out I sort of recognized from the past, but again, I prepared a business plan and it went down a tree. All sorts of government departments, RAP, you name it, all sorts, everybody. But one thing I did find throughout, and we're talking IP, prototyping, marketing. Okay, marketing I'm fairly good on, but I found that some very, very helpful, very, very interested people came very, very briefly, gave me lots of money, and then went away. And I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I had a ton of money. Some of it was sometimes half mine, but on a few occasions it was all somebody else's, the taxpayer. And I felt a little bit like someone who'd sort of graduated from being taught how to fly a Cessna to being stuck in an F-16. Once they'd signed off, I was alone with quite a lot of money and was floundering a bit. And so my question, I think, was, is there a case for funding monies to be associated with matchmaking, such that people who don't have the necessary skills can be matched with someone else who has the skills needed in a complementary fashion, such that both can go ahead together to realize the potential of a concept? Is that roughly what I said? As I say, I'm a creative person. There's probably everyone here except me knows about P&Ls and forward plannings and all the sorts of it. But my question is mainly, beyond a person who's funded for 3 days to come in and go, here's the money, do this, do that, and then buggers off, is there something more that can be done using relationships, databases, etc., to sort of put together someone who has a good idea with someone who has good marketing skills with someone who has good sales skills? They are different, and perhaps help assemble a winning team.
Okay. Are you going to speak, Andy, or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
So I suppose I was going to start off by saying probably the grant arena these days doesn't work in that way, in the fact that you get chucked a ton of money and just left to your own devices to spend it on whatever you might want to spend it on. They're very much more structured now, as in the money's awarded around an agreed set of criteria and outputs that the business would like to achieve off the back of, and that is monitored. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that they're just going to be chucked a ton of money and just be let go. That doesn't happen these days. Certainly not since probably business link days, as you referenced. I would say though that a lot of the support that we deliver through the Growth Hub isn't just about accessing funding. There are other packages of support that sit alongside those with regards to mentoring. So it could well be that as part of implementing a particular project that you might have that's going to enable the business to grow, it could well be that mentoring becomes an aspect of that, and we have funded programs, or at least we have a funded program we're looking to implement that can help with that. The program managers would also help with elements of building and making sure they don't want to give money to a project that's not going to succeed, so they want to ensure that it's going to achieve what the business wants to achieve as a result of having the funding, because they don't want to at the end of the day come along and say that hasn't done what you wanted it to do, and then go down the process of trying to claw it back. So I suppose what I'm saying is perhaps they're delivered in a slightly different way to your previous experience, and yes, by all means, if a business was looking to implement something that was quite on a large scale and needing various elements of funding, we can help with that. Does that answer the question? Not sure.
Ish. I have to say, it's not too different. The word mentoring set up a few red flags for me, because I got a mentor. Actually, I got several. In the end, I got a great one. He was superb. Gobbled up the mentoring money quite quickly. One of my earlier mentors actually was quite interesting. He was sitting just across that desk from me, and so in the over coffee preamble, I asked him what he did before, and he told me he'd been made redundant from his company, which had failed. So that was encouraging. Sometimes it seemed to me that some mentors was more like a funding system for retired people who perhaps weren't too great at what they were doing. Maybe that's changed. I hope it does. As I say, mentoring is finite. There will be an amount of money. A mentor will work within that amount of money. I'm more interested in something that needn't necessarily cost a penny, which is matchmaking, which is finding a like-minded team, or being helped to find a like-minded team who see the potential of a concept and then can take that forward together, maybe then with funding. Or maybe it doesn't even need funding if it's a good enough idea.
I'll just try and add to the answer. I'm conscious of time, because Rich, I need to be gone for 2 o'clock because of my next meeting. But my view to this would be, well, what help do you think you need? You or anybody really. What help do you think you need? And the other thing, if I was assessing a business to invest between 100 and £1.5 million of taxpayer money into, that ours is debt. It's not grant, and we want it back, and we need to kick the tires on that. And so we do a management assessment, and do we think the management team have the competence to deliver all of this? And if there are gaps, and we need to spend some money on filling the gap, as it were, or getting advice and guidance to help that, we would even be prepared to fund whatever those costs were, if we felt that that would help delivery. So I would try and be more specific about what help do you feel you need, and there's definitely help out there. But ultimately, around the entrepreneurial nature of SMEs and making success of SMEs, generally that's it's around your network. It's around the advisory network you've got around you, and your network within the sector. But it's certainly something that we wouldn't say, here's your lump of money, get on with it, and we'll see you in a year. We'd want to have more governance wrapped around the investment that we make.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andy and Lyndsay, for the answer there. I hope that's helped you a bit there, Peter. Has anyone else got any quick questions? We might be able to squeeze one more question in.
Can I ask Lyndsay about the grants for the startups in Herefordshire? Are they for B2B or can they be B2B or B2C? Can you hear me? It's Claire.
Lyndsay, we can't hear.
Lindsay's gone.
Oh.
Yeah, can't see, she's disappeared.
Left the building.
Hold on, she's coming back. Here she is. Come on. You're back now, Lyndsay. Hello?
A slide did say 70%, didn't it? 70% B2B.
For the startup ones.
Sorry, Lyndsay, you're back with us.
I am. My computer died, so I've just had to come and shift into the kitchen and plug myself back in.
Okay,
I think they're going to think I've gone straight on questions.
Quick question for you from Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Lyndsay. I just
Hi.
wondered on the startup grants, the up to 2.5K to 10K.
Yeah.
Do they need to be B2B or can they be B2C as well?
The majority of it will have to be B2B. Unfortunately,
Right.
the RDF classification is that we have to support businesses who, in the main, offer businesses services or goods to another business.
And will they be expected to create jobs as well, being as they're new?
No, there isn't so much of a requirement for that. I think the actual creation of the business is the target support there. So they're not necessarily looking to for additional employees over and above the person who's creating the business.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Has anyone got a quick last question?
Just
Like I
in
said-
terms of funding, just quickly, if anybody doesn't have any questions about the Kickstart initiative or the new apprenticeship funding incentives, don't hesitate to contact me or indeed potentially some of Lyndsay's colleagues, and I can point you in the right direction in terms of additional information there. The details were released last week, so reach out if you need some help with that.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. If you send those details over to me, I'll put it in the email that I send out after the meeting, and then
Brilliant.
people will have all those details as well.
Richard, I've got to go, but I know we're wrapping up, but I would happily have a conversation offline with anybody. You'll share my details, I think.
Yes, I will do.
And happy to talk around whilst my focus is in the 100 to 1.5 million debt fund, I'm happy to talk around or effect introductions to anybody within that fund that might be appropriate. So please get in touch.
Okay, that's brilliant. Right, I think we're coming up to all but exactly 2 o'clock, and I did say that I would finish at 2. So thank you ever so much to Lyndsay and Andy for your presentations today. Like I said, there will be an email going out hopefully later on today with all the details and the links and things, and we will be back in August, hopefully with some nice weather. We'll be back on the 12th of August, speaker to be confirmed as yet. But thank you all for attending again today, and we do hope you all keep safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.